Welcome to Heart and Soul TV and Radio. On this, the situation right now with me, your host as usual, Dara B. Now, 2025 has been somewhat entertaining and interesting on political grounds. And over the past few weeks, I have brought to you political leaders and political players in this country as we discuss and bring down the curtain on 2025. I was with Ostalo Sisiziba just a few weeks ago. I was with engineer Elias Muzuri of the MDCT. I was with Wilbert Mubayiwa of the National People's Congress. Now, the situation right now, I bring you another guest who has been somewhat controversial, a political analyst who does not hesitate to shoot from the hip. Now, join me after this break as we cross over to our interview. Welcome back to the situation right now with me, your host as usual, Dara B. Now, before we go ahead, I'm just requesting you to do of me just one thing. Please take your time to subscribe on our YouTube channel so that we grow our community and we are able to continue doing what we're doing. Now, this episode of the situation right now, I'll be sitting down with Jealous Mbizo Mawarire, a political analyst, former spokesperson of the Joyce Mujuru-led political party, one man who also forced Zimbabwe into a general election in 2013 at the close of the inclusive government where Morgan Tsvangirai was prime minister. We delve into the issues around our politics in 2025 and what should 2026 look like. We get in deep and dirty into things, all things political on the situation right now. Now, thank you very much, Jealous Mawarire, for joining me on the situation right now.
Thank you so much. There have been quite a lot of things happening, but the most important has been the attempt to extend the president's term of office from 2028 to 2030. That has been a major bone of contention. It has been one of the most disruptive introductions to our political discourse, which preoccupied the whole of 2025. And that hasn't been explained fully why the president wants to extend his term of office to 2030. Most of the arguments that have been proffered were really bordering on his intention and his cabal's intentions to keep hold of state levers and to continue looting. But there are quite a lot of other subplots that have not been explained, and I wish I could be afforded time to go into those in detail. In summary, there is a political explanation to that. There is an economic business, quasi-criminal explanation to that. Then there is also a religious explanation to that, which hasn't really been exhaustively discussed. The other two have been discussed, but the religious aspect of his intention to retain power hasn't been discussed fully.
Yeah, people would want then to know where do you derive that authority to be able to speak on behalf of the president and on behalf of those people who want his term of office to be extended. Where do you get that authority from?
No, I'm not speaking on their behalf. I'm speaking as a law-abiding citizen, as a political participant, as an analyst, and as a Zimbabwean. I have a right, actually, to discuss political happenings in my country, and I have a right to challenge constitutional violations that I'm seeing that the president is intending to do as he tries to extend to illegally extend his stay in office from 2028 to 2030. So, as a Zimbabwean, as a law-abiding citizen, as a constitutional abiding citizen, I am empowered to talk about these things, and I'm empowered to analyze what is happening in my country. It is indeed that we claim that Zimbabwe is a democracy. If Zimbabwe is a democracy, then I, as a citizen, I have the right to question some of the things that are happening in my country politically. And this is what I'm doing. And I'm an active political participant, and I have a right to challenge what is happening. That's where I get my right to criticize or to critique what is happening in my country.
Let us look into the issues that happened in 2025. I mean, as on the political scene first, maybe would get back later to that issue. Our intention as we close this year is just to have a helicopter view of what really mattered for people in this past year that we're leaving behind, and then we look into the future.
What really mattered for us, and what really matters for us, is the attempt by the president and his political party to illegally extend his stay in office. I think there's nothing bigger than that, because that has fundamental implications to the political stability of the country, to the economic stability of the country. So we cannot never discuss anything else other than the illegal attempt by the president to extend his stay in office until 2030. That's what we need to discuss. And that has been the preoccupation even of his political party. And that has been the preoccupation of his political party, because if you look at the October ZANU-PF conference in Mutare, the first resolution was to mandate the leader of government in parliament to expedite moves to change the constitution and allow the president to illegally stay in office until 2030. So that's what we need to discuss. And that's why I was saying we need to discuss it with considerations to the factors that are mitigating, the factors that are helping the president or nudging the president to want to extend his stay in office beyond the constitutional limit of 2028. That's why I said there is a political dimension to that. There is a business dimension to that, a business quasi-criminal intention to that. But there is also a religious, occultic explanation to why he wants to stay in power. And that religious and occultic explanation hasn't been exhaustively discussed within the political discourse on why the president wants to stay in office beyond 2030. Because if you look at it from the outside, you say this is an 80-something-year-old person. Why does he want to stay in power beyond 2028? Is there any logical reason why he needs to stay in office? And all the reasons that are there are not logical. So there should be something illogical that is very compelling for him, which is making him want to stay in office. And that's the religious aspect that I said I wanted to explain. And what I want to explain here is that this president that we have, is deeply involved in occultism, is deeply involved in the issues, the mashikiro and stuff. And these mashikiros are people who have actually found a niche. Remember, everyone else is forming a group and exploiting the naivety of our president to say, we want to support you, we want to make sure that you stay in office. Hence, we now have footballers and ex-football coaches association for ED. You have all these various groups for ED. So there is a coterie also of sangomas, of these mashikiros, who have been telling the president that he has to stay in office. He has to be in office for at least 12 years. And these 12 years are supposed to be a year for every year that, a year for every Munumutapa that has reigned over the Roshi kingdom in the southern part of Zimbabwe, in Masvingo. So the president is intending to extend his stay in office to 2030 so that he gets to the 12 years that his Mashikeros are telling him that he should be in office for 12 years, and each year that is in office represents the reign of a Munumutapa. We are told that there were 12 Munumutapas. That's why the president wants to stay in office for 12 years, each year for every Munumutapa that has reigned over the Roshi kingdom in Masvingo. And the 12 Munumutapas in Masvingo are represented by the 12 hills at Great Zimbabwe. So that's the explanation that these Mashikiros are giving him, that he has to go beyond his constitutional term limit because he needs to make himself the great Munumutapa. And he can only be a great Munumutapa if he reigns for 12 years, each year signifying the reign of each and every one of the 12 Munumutapas. That's the religious explanation. It doesn't make sense, but that's the reality. That's what is nudging him to stay in office and to hang on to power illegally.
Yes, but Jealous, the last time I had a conversation with you, you spoke about that this is not just a 2030 agenda. You said that the president wanted to stay beyond 2030 and more than 12 years in power. Now you are saying you are sitting here, the same person, you are now changing goalposts, that he now wants to serve only up to 2030 and follow just 12 years, as you are saying. Which one should the people believe?
I'm giving you an explanation to the 2030. You have actually seen, it's not me who is changing goalposts. You have actually seen that the crusaders for this 2030 agenda, on one day they speak about the president going to 2030. On another, they speak about the president going to 2035. So the first port of call is to make sure that the president stays in office until 2030, so that he does his 12 years that his Mashikiros are telling him to. And the 2035 agenda is not divorced from the 2030 agenda. The 2030 agenda, the occultic 2030 agenda, is supposed to create a Mafidi dynasty. It's supposed to make Zimbabwe a kingdom by making Mnangagwa a great Munumutapa. So once he achieves that, he can also achieve 2035 by making sure that the next Munumutapa who comes in will be of the Mafidi dynasty. So there's no contradiction there. It's one thing that is being done in steps. So if you analyze the first step and then you go to the next step, there's no contradiction there.
But you talk about this occultic issue, but those in ZANU-PF, especially Ziambi, the Minister of Justice, has said that they are trying to avoid Zimbabwe always being in election mode. And this has retarded development in the country, because every other time we are always on election mode and not much is being given towards development. So keeping President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa in office for the extra 2 years will focus the country into a development mode and take it away from electioneering. That doesn't make sense to you?
It doesn't make sense because the very idea of extending the president term of office has actually put the whole country into election mode. Because what we see now, we're seeing rallies We are seeing meetings which are being held by ZANU-PF precisely to campaign for the president to stay in office to 2030. So it doesn't make sense. It's irrational to say that we want to avoid the elections by putting the country into a campaign mode for the president to stay in office in 2030. The whole country in 2025 has been in election mode. Hence, you see all those rallies that have been going on. Taguire going on his own, with his own entourage, having rallies in and around Harare, Tungwarara, having rallies all over the country, drumming up support for the president to extend his stay in office until 2030. So the country basically is in election mode now. And what has put the country in election mode now is the illegal suggestions, is the suggestions to illegally extend the president's term of office. So it's actually an oxymoron for someone to then say that they want to prevent the country from being in a perpetual election mode when they are going out to campaign. Because elections are all about campaigning. What is Ziambi? What is Tungwarara? What is Taguire doing right now? They are campaigning. So the country is in election mode. They have put the country in election mode. And if campaigning and consistently keeping the country in election mode retards development, the people who are responsible for this retardation are these Ziambis, are the Taguireis, are the Mnangagwas, who are continuously mobilizing people not to support development projects, but to support political projects, unconstitutional for that matter, in order for the president to keep on in office.
They actually argue that the president. They actually jealous. They actually argue.
No. If Ziambi and company
wait, Mr.
Mawarire, election mode, they shouldn't have started this 2030 nonsense.
Yeah, but then they actually argue that by supporting President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa's stay in office is actually supporting development because he has brought development in Zimbabwe. You look at the roads, the infrastructure that he's been building, and that the GDP of this country has been growing according to the figures that was released by the Minister of Finance in the 2026 national budget. This is a Mnangagwa move that has improved development in this country.
You see, when old people, adults for that matter, choose to bury their heads in the sand, and these are our political and government leaders, it's a tragedy. What development are you talking about? Which roads are you talking about? And if someone constructs a road that does that make him eligible to stay in office unconstitutionally and perpetually? Didn't Mugabe do roads in Zimbabwe? The Plumtree Harare Mutare Road, wasn't it done during Mugabe's time? Did that justify Mugabe to stay in office?
He almost stayed in office for life.
The constitutional limit. And which road? Even if you talk of the Harare Mashingo Bedbury road, is it complete? We have seen pictures, we have seen videos of badly damaged parts of that road. If you talk about the Harare Chirundu road, is there a road to talk about? So which roads is Mnangagwa fixing? If you fix one 20-kilometer road, Loma Gundi, which was badly done for that matter, I stay in Westgate. That road is among the worst roads that have been resurfaced during Mnangagwa's time. So that shoddy job, those that shoddy job that has been done on roads is the one that is being foisted on us to then justify Mnangagwa's intended illegal extension of his stay in office. There's no development in Zimbabwe. Even your mention about GDP. GDP does not measure development. If you read, other economists have actually described GDP as the rate at which resources are turned into garbage. You don't use that to measure development. Our people are poorer than what they were in 2017. Our civil servants are being paid 230 United States dollars a month. Our lecturers are being paid, professors are being paid 230 United States dollars a month. Is that development? There is massive unemployment. Every youth who aspires to own anything is now forced to dancing and singing praises to Mnangagwa so that he's given a GT6 or he's given an Aqua, a Toyota Aqua. Is that development? Development is measured in terms of the qualitative improvement of the people's lives. Our people right now are surviving barely on $1 a day, and you call that development? There's no development in Zimbabwe. If anything, there's massive looting of national resources, which has actually resulted in our people living in dire and abject poverty. You and I know, and we have witnessed it, whenever there is a road traffic accident. What are we seeing? Recently, we saw that one of the medical facilities that attended to people that had been involved in an accident, they were cutting curtains to use as bandages. And you tell me that that's development. You tell me that's development when people are admitted in hospitals and the medical personnel use cardboard boxes to plaster injuries. Is that development?
The president wants to end all this and therefore extending his term of office.
Power for 7 years. When does he want to end it? He wants to end it in the 2 years from 2028 to 2030. Why can't he end it now? Why can't he end it when he is still constitutionally the president of the country? Does it take 20 years? Does it take 12 years to put bandages in hospitals? Does it take 20 years or 12 years to make sure that our civil servants are paid salaries which are above the poverty datum line? This government collects more than 35 million a year in health taxes, only from mobile telephone and data operators. And we haven't seen where this 35 million has been put. Which hospital has received this 35 million? Our people are dying for lack of even painkillers. That unfortunate incident where a musician died while calling for a painkiller. Is that development? There is no development that can be measured when your people are dying from curable diseases, when your people are dying from circumstances and unfortunate accidents that can be attended by your health personnel. If that is not done, there's no development. There's no development when our children are still learning under trees. There's no development. You cannot talk about cooked up figures by Mutuli. Mutuli has no idea about what he's doing.
He's a whole professor of economics. He would know economics better than you, jealous. Mutuli,
he's presiding over the worst kind of economic decline in our country.
No, but he is a professor of economics and he would know economics better than you, don't you think?
I don't need to be a professor in economics in order to realize that our people are living in abject poverty. In order to realize, you don't even need to be a driver in order for you to realize that there was a road traffic accident there. Do you? I don't need to be an economist in order for me to see that my people are living in abject poverty, to see that this economy is being mismanaged, because there is a leakage. There is very serious leakages of more than 150 million United States dollars a month. And officials in the Ministry of Finance, Mutuli included, he knows that. He knows that this economy is bleeding $150 million every month due to theft, due to unscrupulous activities by people in high offices. He knows that. The Financial Intelligence Unit knows that there is financial hemorrhaging amounting to more than 150 million United States dollars every month in this country. They know that. And I know that because I have my ways of getting information even from the highest offices. I get information from the Ministry of Finance, I get information from the Reserve Bank, where the Financial Intelligence Unit is housed. And they know, they have it in black and white, that this country is bleeding 150 million United States dollars every month. That 150 million United States dollars that we are losing every month can be used to build state-of-the-art hospitals. The South Africans in Pretoria have built a state-of-the-art neck and ear hospital, neck and head hospital for only 26 million United States dollars. Just imagine what you would do with 150 million United States dollars. How many hospitals? How many machinery would you deploy in your hospitals? How much would you pay your doctors if you just manage that bleeding? If you just manage that the country doesn't lose 150 million United States dollars a month, you can use that money even to build these roads that you are talking about. There are no roads in Chitungwiza. There are no tarred roads in Glenview. There are no tarred roads in Makokova, in Nketa. There are no tarred roads in Nkulumani, where there was a by-election now. I was in Nkulumani recently. The roads the tarred roads have disappeared from that area. Mm-hmm. So imagine if we stopped that bleeding, bleeding of 150 million. What we could do with that 150 million? That's only one thing. If we stop the illegal exportation of our mineral resources, lithium, chrome, if we stop the illegal activities around gold, how much are we going to get?
But Julius, who will stop this? Is there anyone with the capacity to stop this? Is there anyone?
Mnangagwa has presided over unprecedented looting of our national resources.
But is there anyone who has the capacity to stop this unprecedented looting that you're talking about? And where is that person? Is there anyone who has the capacity to stop this unprecedented looting that you say is happening in Zimbabwe? And where is that person? Where do you locate that person?
Yes. You don't even need just an individual to stop that unprecedented looting. It needs all of us. You included. You can stop that looting.
So why are we not stopping it now? Why are we not stopping it now?
We have actually stopped. We stopped the POSB, the attempts to loot the POSB. That we stopped. We stopped effectively. And you can't say that we are not doing anything. We are doing something. And there are people even within this government who are working hard to stop what is going on there. And the Vice President has come out. Vice President Chiwenga has come out recently saying that those that are responsible for the enforcement of the law should do that without favor. And that's a man who has decided to rise in Zimbabwe and to lead the crusade to stop this unprecedented looting. Hasn't he actually confronted the Zvigananda? He has done that. But what have we seen? We have seen those that are benefiting from the unprecedented looting, the Ziampis, attacking him. How do you attack someone who is calling for an end to unprecedented corruption, looting of more than 1.9 trillion United States dollars in the Coimba deal by Tagwire and company. And the vice president comes out and says we should put a stop to that. Then someone says that's treasonous. What's treasonous about stopping people who are looting our national resources? People who are responsible for the kind of calamities that we experience on a day-to-day as Zimbabweans because we cannot access health facilities. We cannot drive on good roads because someone is busy looting our national resources. And when the vice president comes out and says that we should put a stop to that, then someone says that's treason. What kind of crap is that?
You kept saying that President Emerson Mnangagwa wants to stay in office unconstitutionally. He has said he's a constitutionalist, and the proposals that are being put in place are to ensure that if he does stay in office beyond 2028, he does so constitutionally. So why do you keep referring to it as unconstitutional when there are moves to make sure that it is done constitutionally?
The moves that are being done are extra-constitutional, so they are not constitutional. The moves that have been done are extra-constitutional. Our constitution is very clear that if you want to extend the term of office of a president, that extension does not benefit the sitting president. The constitution is very clear on that. And what we have seen are attempts then to change Section 92 of the Constitution, which mandates that the president is directly elected by the people, and change that to a situation where the president is elected by parliament. And this is intended to be done before the 4th of September 2026, in order that they will conveniently read that the years that the president did from 4 September 2023 to 4 September 2026, which is 3 years, which is 2 years, 363 days, are deemed to be not a term. And therefore, they then want the president to be re-elected before September 2024, and the argument is that he would have done his second term. It's clear political skullduggery, an illegal and convenient reading of the Constitution, which is very criminal. We have seen that if you read the history of the rise of dictatorship, the rise and fall of dictatorship in Peru, particularly the rise and fall of Alexandro, of the former president of Peru between 1995 and 2005. You see, why I'm actually raising the issue of Peru is that Peru, like Zimbabwe, had a 1979 constitution. And the 1979 constitution in Peru did not allow a president to go beyond 5 years. It was one term, 1 5-year term. So this president, Alexandro, came in. And when he came in, he changed the constitution. He came in 1990, changed the constitution in 1992 to say that the president can be re-elected because he wanted re-election. So he got re-elected for another term. And when that...
Jealous, I want us to discuss this issue. Just after President Emerson Mnangagwa was elected into office, he attended an interview when he was in, it must be in Sweden at Davos, where he made a commitment that he was just going to serve 2 terms of office and leave office. He further even repeated this when he had a meeting with editors at State House, when there was a question that when he was asked if he would be persuaded to extend his term of office, and I quote, I think if my memory still serves me well, he said he was going to persuade the persuaders not to persuade him. And just a few days ago, I had an interview with Wilbert Mbaiwa, the president of the National People's Congress, who said that the people of Zimbabwe must just prepare for an election in 2028. They must not be worried about what ZANU-PF does in its backyard, because at this moment, as long as there's nothing before Parliament, then he's not worried, because that is not something that is official that should be worried. And he believes that the president himself would actually refuse any term extension.
Well, I'm glad that you have actually you have made reference to the Davos CNN interview. It was with CNN, isn't it?
I'm sure it was with CNN, yes.
Yeah, it was with CNN. And if you knew that interview was done to run away from a one-term presidency. Because after the 2017 coup and after President Emerson Mnangagwa, if I may call him president, after he lost the election in 2018.
He lost the election. He lost it.
He lost that election.
But Zek says something else. But Zek says he won that election.
Yeah, I'm telling you. After he lost the election, he knows it. And let me tell you what happened. After he lost the election, the generals that had helped him to do the coup in 2017 called him and said that they could not have staged the coup in order to pass on power to the opposition. They had anticipated that he, Mnangagwa, was going to win the election and therefore continue the country on a democratic path. But since he had lost the election, they were going to do another coup. That was another coup which they did to subvert the will of the people, to subvert the outcome of the presidential election in 2018 and install once again Emerson Mnangagwa in power for 1 year, for one term, 1 5-year term. Their argument was that the political party ZANU-PF had won the election, but the presidential candidate had lost the election. So therefore, in order to run away from a coalition government, they were going to stage another coup. This was a soft coup which they staged, imposed Mnangagwa as the winner of the 2018 elections, when in actual fact he had gotten 32%. Made him president on the assurance that within the 5 years, ZANU-PF was supposed to look for a credible candidate who had capacity to win elections in 2023. That was the agreement that Emerson had with the generals, General Chwenga, General Emarshal Shiri, Zimonti, all those other generals who later on succumbed to what was now called COVID. They were there. And they are the ones who had an undertaking, who had an agreement with Emerson that he was going to be a one-term president. And he was going to be a one-term president on the condition that ZANU-PF as a political party was supposed to come up with a candidate that had capacity to win elections, in presidential elections in 2023. because we had a situation in 2018 where ZANU-PF as a party had won the popular vote, but their presidential candidate had lost the election. So there was an agreement prior to Mnangagwa going to Davos that Mnangagwa was going to be a one-term president on the basis that he had not won the election in 2018. He was a military imposition in 2018 after the so-called elections. He didn't win the 2018 elections. So the agreement was that he was supposed to be a one-term president.
But you make it
While
serious.
ZANU-PF was looking for a presidential candidate for 2023. Emerson agreed to that, only to change that by his announcement on the CNN interview in Davos. That's when he then said he was going to do 10 years. He was going to do 2 terms. That message was not meant for the CNN. That message was a rebellious act from the agreement that Emerson had with the generals. It was directed at the generals. That's the reason why Emerson and his children had to pay a fixer $600,000 United States dollars to get that CNN interview.
But you're making serious allegations here. You're making serious allegations here that the election was stolen in 2018 and that the interview with CNN was got dubiously. I mean, these are serious allegations. Do you have anything to support them?
There are people that are there. There are people that are there who actually witnessed money being transferred to a Zimbabwean who lives in the United States, and that Zimbabwean is the one who alleged that he was using the 600,000 to fix an interview with CNN. CNN wasn't involved there was no money that got to CNN. But the Zimbabwean who organized that interview purported that he needed 600,000 United States dollars to fix that interview. And that interview was so important to Emerson and his children, because that's when they wanted to break the agreement that they had, the one presidential term agreement that Emerson had with the army generals. And that's where the friction started. And that's what led us to the attempts by the military to change the situation in January 2019. You know of those upheavals, you know what happened in January 2019 during the fuel crisis. So that was a reaction by the army to what Mnangagwa had done, breaking the promise that was between him and the military, that he was supposed to be a one-term president. So when he tells you that he's going to do 10 years, he's lying, he's just buying time. He agreed to doing just five years, and he broke that agreement with the military. And what then followed was a systematic extermination of all those generals who had an agreement with him. And maybe the only ones that are left now is General Rigeje and Vice President General Chiwenga. They are the only ones who have survived that. But Chiwenga survived after being poisoned as well. So when he says he's a constitutionalist, he's lying. Where have you seen a constitutionalist who takes over power through a coup? There was a coup in November 2017, which resulted in him being president. And a constitution is a coup is a subversion of the constitution. So someone who did a coup can never tell you that he's a constitutionalist. What kind of a constitutionalist is that? A constitutionalist who comes on the backdrop of a coup.
Is he the one who did the coup? Because the coup happened while President Emerson Mnangagwa was not in Zimbabwe, he was in South Africa. Is it not General Chiwenga who did the coup?
You are the one, I think you are the one who published his letter, didn't you? That he was going to come back in 2 weeks and take over power. You are better positioned to actually tell us his involvement in organizing and executing that coup, because you published his letter. He said he was going to come back in 2 weeks and take over power. How was he going to take over power from a constitutionally elected president outside a coup? And we saw what happened in those 2 weeks. There was a coup in Zimbabwe. So any attempt to dissociate Emerson Mnangagwa from the 2017 coup is disingenuous.
But these allegations that there was another coup in 2018, I mean, these are serious allegations that throws the entire Zimbabwe Electoral Commission into disrepute, and also could cause, uncertainty in the security sector when you make such bold allegations.
Yeah, but you don't mention the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and honesty in the same sentence, because this is an electoral management board which was involved in money laundering allegations, which amount to more than 2 billion rand. And there's a financial intelligence center report, a South African financial intelligence report to that effect. This is an electoral management board involved in massive money laundering allegations. And if you have those kind of allegations hovering over the chairman of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, if she could facilitate that kind of massive looting of national resources, what stops her from tampering with figures if the preferred presidential candidate loses an election? It's a no-brainer. You have someone who is alleged to have participated in money laundering involving 2 billion United States dollars. There are even audios by Jivai saying, no, we are going to give mother this amount, we are going to give this, sharing the amounts ill-gotten from that transaction with the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. And you tell me that someone who has the guts to involve yourself in such a scandalous money laundering activity and to the tune of 2 billion rand cannot change figures, presidential figures, if she has the military support to do that and if she has the political support to do that. You tell me that's an impossibility.
So you're basically saying here to me right now, and live to our audiences right now who are listening right now, that having elections in Zimbabwe is just a waste of time. It's the military that decides.
I'm not saying that it's a waste of time. I'm saying that if we want to have elections, then we have to make sure that the institutions that are empowered, constitutionally empowered to preside over our elections are free, are impartial, and they are peopled, they are manned by people who are credible and who are not unscrupulous. Elections can still be done and can still be won and can still be done democratically if ZEC is headed by people, by credible people who have not been involved in rigging elections before. So we don't throw away the baby with bathwater. We say, let's reform these institutions. Let's make sure that these institutions operate according to the provisions of the Constitution. And we have credible people at their helm so that when elections are done, the elections reflect the will of the people of Zimbabwe. That's all that is needed. We are not saying that elections are useless. If we don't do elections, how then do we change leadership? We do coups. No, we have to do elections, but we have to do them properly. we have to make sure that institutions, Chapter 12 institutions that are empowered by the Constitution to hold or to preside over our elections, do so impartially, do so with the highest form of integrity. That's what is needed. And we don't need criminals to be among those that are running ZEC. We don't need that. So if someone has been implicated in money laundering allegations of 2 billion rand, that person needs to be taken out of the Electoral Management Board as of yesterday, because that's a dishonest character that you cannot then put at the helm of the Electoral Management Board.
You say that someone listening would want to get this clarity, that General Chiwenga, who is now Vice President of Zimbabwe and retired Army General, was part of this transaction that also forced or militarily imposed President Emerson Mnangagwa after he lost an election. You sitting there.
I said the army generals that did the coup, the army generals that did the coup in 2017 are the ones that said we could not have done a coup in order to leave the country in the hands of untested opposition personalities. That's why they then said Emerson Mnangagwa was supposed to be a transitional figure, preparing the way for a ZANU-PF leader who was going to democratically win elections in 2023. You have to give credit to those generals because they didn't rig the 2018 elections. They allowed those elections to play out democratically.
But rigged them at the
on the understanding that that Emerson was popular and was going to garner support. You can only fault them for their action after the election, when then they imposed the Emerson, despite the fact that Emerson had lost the election in 2018. That has to be put to them. And we have to get an explanation why they did that. And that also explains why, because Emerson then realized that the army didn't want him to be a presidential candidate. That's why then he brought in the CIO and FAS to run the elections and to rig the elections for him in 2023.
So the 2023 elections were rigged also?
That's the motivation. That's the motivation for him to dump the army from running his campaign in 2023 and roping the CIO and FAS to do that for him. It was because the army had told him in no uncertain terms in 2018 that he was unelectable, he was not popular. He lost the election in 2018, so they couldn't go with him. They couldn't repeat that experiment in 2023. Hence, they had directed the party, and now that General Chiwenga was in the party, they had instructed the party to look for a credible candidate who was electable and who could win the elections in 2023. And this is what Emerson didn't like. Despite having agreed with the army generals, in 2018, he then later on agreed with them that he was going to be a one-term president. He then later on that CNN interview, then to break that agreement and then to announce himself as a two-term president, a 10-year president. It wasn't done because he was a constitutionalist. He gravitated towards the Constitution because he wanted to break the agreement that he had with the army generals that he was supposed to serve for only one term because he had lost elections in 2018. So what he did was a law of authentic interpretation of the Constitution for his own convenience. Exactly what they are now doing with their interpretation, with their intentions to change Section 92 of the Constitution to say that the president has to be elected by Parliament. It's another example of the law of authentic interpretation in order to achieve an illegality. And they've called that, they've actually roped in people like Professor Jonathan Moyo to push for that kind of legal interpretation and to cause the judiciary, in the event that someone challenges that in court, to interpret the law in such a way that they would say, no, the president didn't do 2 terms. This change of the constitution came when he hadn't done 2 terms, so he's eligible to go for another term, and this will be his constitutional 2nd term. It's a whole criminal interpretation of the law, which is meant to achieve an illegality, which is meant to dress an illegality in the robes of constitutionalism and legalism, which is fundamentally wrong, because it is an extra constitutional activity which has potential to destabilize this country. And you wonder, the same people that are saying that we don't want disruptions, we want development, are coming in with very shocking suggestions and propositions to destabilize the country. Because wherever a president has pushed for a 3rd term, the result has always been destabilization. And the result has always been extra constitutional reactions to those proposals. And I won't rule out that there might be another coup in Zimbabwe if the president wants to illegally hold on to power beyond what the constitution has given him.
Mm-hmm. So what is the outlook for 2026 for the people of Zimbabwe? Because we want to look at what should the people of Zimbabwe do, and what is it likely for them to happen if these things continue. Because I mean, it's shocking. I'm utterly shocked that the 2018 general elections, there was a coup. I'm even shocked. I mean, not really shocked, but in 2023, SADC itself pronounced that the elections had not been free and fair, and there are reports, I mean, from SADC, which makes sad reading for democracy in Zimbabwe. But how do we go forward? How do we move forward?
What we simply need to do as Zimbabweans is to demand our political rights, to demand the right to participate and mobilize Zimbabweans, because what the president has aimed at is our constitution. And what we need to do as Zimbabweans is to mobilize each other, to rally together, and to demand that the constitution shouldn't be violated. And we have to resist any attempts to change our constitution without subjecting those changes to a referendum, especially the changes that have something to do with the term limits. The constitution is very clear in section 328 that any changes that has to do with term limits, whether you want to extend the president's term by 2 years or not, such changes have to be subjected to a national referendum. And we have to demand that that is done. Any move that seeks to remove the people from participating in discussions on whether the constitution can be changed should be resisted. Anyone who wants to do this clandestinely outside the clearly set out terms in section 328 of the constitution should meet the full wrath of of the Zimbabwean people, because it is our duty to defend the constitution. It is our duty to defend this constitution because it's us who came up with this constitution in the first place. This constitution has enough safeguards to prevent malcontents and unscrupulous politicians who want to go on illegally. Anyone who wants to extend the term of office of the president has to deal with specific constitutional provisions which say that no sitting president benefits from the extension of the term limits, and provisions which declare that any changes to the term limits in our constitution have to be subjected to a referendum. And even if you want to make the sitting president benefit, if you want to change that particular constitutional provision which prevents him from benefiting from a constitutional change on term limits which happens during his tenure, you have to change the constitution. And once you change that constitutional provision, you have to go to the referendum. And the constitution is clear that there should be separate referendums. If the referendum to make the president benefit, the sitting president benefit, it should be separate. The referendum to determine whether people want the term limits to be changed, it has to be a separate referendum. And it's clear in the constitution. So Zimbabweans in 2026 should demand that all those people who have become mischievous and who want to mutilate our constitution, if they want to do it, if they want to change the constitution, they have to follow the clear guidelines in the constitution. This constitution is very clear in section 328. It gives us a guideline on what we do in section 328, on what we have to do and the steps that we need to take if we want to change any provision in this constitution. Any provision in the constitution which has to do with provisions in chapter 4 and provisions in chapter 16, and any provision that has anything to do with term limits, it has to go through a referendum. And that's very clear from our constitution. Yep. The constitution, for the avoidance of doubt, and for the avoidance of doubt, clearly defines what a term limit is. Our constitution defines what a term limit is, and it's very clear what it does, because it defines a term limit in section 328 subsection 1. It says that term limit provision means a provision of this constitution which limits the length of time that a person may hold or occupy a public office. And it's very clear in section 95 of the Constitution that a presidential term is 5 years. It has an upper limit of 5 years. If you want to extend the president's term beyond 5 years, it means that you would have tempered on a term limit. Therefore, any change to that constitutional provision has to go through a referendum.
Jealous, unfortunately, I'm running out of time. But as you make your last submissions, you talk about people of Zimbabwe coming together. But in your early submission, you said that ZANU-PF won the popular vote, and it is actually loved by the people as a party. And this is the same party which is loved by people, which is making this resolution to extend the term limit. Now, is this not the people speaking to say we want our president? Because if ZANU-PF as a party is loved, then it surely means that what it says as a party resonates with what people believe and want.
The majority in ZANU-PF, even in the Politburo, they don't want the president to violate the constitution. They don't want the president to go beyond 2028. That's the best thing that has happened to Zimbabwe. The majority of the people in ZANU-PF, they don't want Emmerson Mnangagwa to continue beyond 2028. If anything, a lot of them even don't want him to be president even in 2026. Were it not that if they had to remove him before 2026, they would be guilty of violating the constitution that they seek to defend. So, because they are constitutionalists, they can put up with Emmerson until 2028 when his term of office legally expires. So, those that are agitating for Mnangagwa to carry on are those criminals that are benefiting from his stay in office. I can tell you in no uncertain terms that even among those Ziganandas, the reason why Tagwirei has now fallen over with Mnangagwa is that, and why Mnangagwa is now pushing Tungara, is that Mnangagwa had discovered that Tagwirei had bought all the 10 provincial chairpersons of ZANU-PF. They were given, publicly, they were given Land Cruisers 300 series and 100,000 United States dollars. But clandestinely, each and every one chairperson was given 250,000 United States dollars, precisely to push to pass a vote of no confidence on Emmerson Mnangagwa. The first vote of no confidence was supposed to be making sure that it's the party. Mnangagwa is removed from being party president by a vote of no confidence. And that was supposed to be pushed by Jabulani Sibanda, the chairperson of Lawai. He was supposed to have pushed that motion and supported by Garwe. But some things then happened, and that plan was scuttled. But Tagwirei had invested in these 10 provincial chairpersons initially for them to push Mnangagwa out of ZANU-PF presidency. Then followed that by another vote of no confidence. This one now fronted by Mary Muliswa to push for a vote of no confidence on Emmerson Mnangagwa. Then he was supposed to be supported by Mavenyengwa, the Masvingo provincial chairperson. So that was the plan that Tagwirei and others were clandestinely mooting to push Mnangagwa out of power from his office as president of ZANU and first secretary of ZANU-PF, then go on then to remove him as president of the republic. And they were going to do that basing on the constitutional provision which mandates that a president can be removed on medical grounds. So maybe they have medical evidence. They have medical evidence that the president is no longer fit to stay in power and therefore should be removed on medical grounds. That's what they wanted to do. If they had pushed that, they could have done that within the rubric of the Constitution, and it could have been constitutional because the Constitution allows for the removal of the president on the basis that the president is no longer able to perform the functions of the office of president because of physical or mental incapacity. That's provided for in section 97 of the Constitution. So they could have done that and legally done so and constitutionally done so because the Constitution provides for that. When the president is mentally incapacitated or physically incapacitated, that president can be removed from office. So there have been machinations even within the Zigananda cabal to remove President Mnangagwa from power. So you don't tell me that that ZANU-PF is unanimous in wanting Mnangagwa to stay in office when there are these machinations, even to remove him before 2028.
Thank you very much, Jealous. I just have under a minute for you, Jealous, just to your parting shots. Under a minute.
Thank you very much. I would love to urge the people of Zimbabwe to unite in 2026 and to make sure that we fight those malcontents that are trying to mutilate our constitution. The constitution of Zimbabwe it provides the guidelines on how the country is supposed to be run. Anyone who wants to mutilate the constitution for whatever reason, and even for the reason of saying that we want a cooling off period, like what Professor Moyo and the cabal behind the Breaking Barriers Initiative are saying, they have to be resisted, because the constitution should be sacrosanct. The constitution should be there and should not be changed in order to pursue selfish political agendas of people that have been looting our country. We have to stop those that want to violate the constitution, and we also have to stop the hemorrhaging, financial hemorrhaging, which is happening in the country. We also have to stop the illegal exportation of our mineral resources, of our lithium, of our chrome, of our gold, of our platinum, all those mineral resources that God gave us to develop our country. We need to guard them jealously and to make sure that they benefit the people of Zimbabwe. And we have to make sure that Parliament, we have to make sure that government is accountable, because right now we are being taxed, especially, particularly the health tax. It gives me a lot of heart pain, because more than 35 million is collected every year from taxation of the phone calls that we do and the data that we consume. 35 million is collected, and is collected on the pretext that it's supposed to be put into the health sector, but it's never put there. What we are seeing is wanton misuse of national resources. That's why we have characters who wake up every day dishing out cars to comedians, dishing out cars to musicians, dishing out cars to anyone who dares to sing praises to the president so that he achieves the illegal stay in office beyond 2028.
I want to thank you very much, Jealous Mawarire, for joining us here on the situation right now. With me, your host as usual, Dara B. Now, it is always important for Zimbabweans to hear each other, to talk to each other, and to be able to appreciate each other's views. Now, here on the situation right now, is just a platform on Heart and Soul TV and radio where we allow everyone to be heard regardless of their opinion. And we are not responsible for what our guests say on this platform. We always try and keep it in line with the law of this country. And I, your host as usual, proudly your host as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga. I just want to wish you an amazing 2026 and invite you to continue engaging with us on this platform, because this is the heart and soul of the nation. Until next time, please don't forget to subscribe, share, and continue listening to our content so that we remain the nation's most preferred socio-political discourse platform in Zimbabwe. Until next time, Adara B.